Welcome back, everybody. It's 6:45 on this Monday morning. Last week, Parliament heard that Eskom's contract with Tegeta Exploration and Resources for the supply of coal contained discrepancies, was poorly drafted and was in contravention of supply chain management procedures. Now, the report produced by PriceWaterhouseCoopers was tabled before the Standing Committee for Public Accounts. Themba Godi, the chairperson of Scopa, is joining us for an update on this matter. Themba, thank you. Thanks for being with us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Who actually commissioned the report and why?
Well, interestingly, that was commissioned by Eskom itself. There are basically two reports. The first one was in November 2015 to identify the defects. The second one was in November 2016, which was to look at how Eskom is complying with the earlier report. Well, firstly, the discrepancies are identified, I think, as you explained in your intro.
Yeah.
Then the second one does pick up a number of discrepancies, especially in terms of implementation, especially around the need to relook at the contract, ensure that the legal team of Eskom is able to go through it and tie down all the defects.
Yeah.
Now, the final response, which I think becomes very, very central, is that when that was hinted in November 2015, Eskom's response was, well, we're going to take this to our legal department on the 31st of March 2017, meaning all along it is going to operate without having been checked and having been tightened to ensure that it is compliant.
So when, on Friday, we saw Minister Lynn Brown saying that she's still waiting for another investigation by Treasury. What is your biggest concern about what's been revealed so far at this stage?
You know, I think first and foremost, our biggest concern as Parliament and as Scopa is the fact that almost all the investigations that National Treasury is doing, there is food dragging from departments in terms of providing information. Whether you're talking about the SABC, whether you're talking about Transnet, or whether you're talking about Eskom. I actually have had to write a letter to National Treasury last week to say, these reports on SABC, PRASA, DNL, Transnet, why are you not completing them? And so that if there's any problem of food dragging, Parliament can come in. Now, in relation to the Eskom one, you'll realize that the National Treasury should have actually reported to us in November last year, but they couldn't because there is a challenge around information. Now, there are a number of other issues that National Treasury has raised, not only the Tegeta one, but there are other coal contracts that I think Eskom has sought to enter into with the Gupta family, that all have these challenges around the structuring of the contracts and ensuring that the best deal is made for Eskom and not for the contracting company.
So, I mean, when we look at Eskom's procurement policy, and this is what it basically states, it prohibits single adjudication of contracts. But despite that fact, it doesn't look like tender committees were actually consulted, because Eskom continued signing contracts in excess of 3 billion rand with Tegeta. What happens to those implicated in flouting this procurement process?
Look, Leanne, when we met with National Treasury last week, it was basically for them to tease out the information for us. But ultimately, our intention is to bring Eskom before Scopa, which we think we'll do in the next 2 weeks, before the end of May, actually. We are going to call them. And what we want to do is to be able to, not speak in general terms, but we need to be specific in terms of which official gave the go-ahead, which official signed on the paper, and those people must be held accountable, because unless the fight against corruption and mismanagement is taken to the level of specific managers, specific individuals, we'll merely generalize about an entity that it is not doing well and not holding specific individuals to account. And I think that is the route that we in Scopa have, since late last year, taken to ensure that we don't only talk about corruption, but to actually fight and root it out.
So Eskom wasn't actually in Parliament on the day to answer for itself. When is the committee calling them?
Well, like I said, we always meet with the Auditor General to give us information as part of preparation. So our meeting on Wednesday with National Treasury was part of that process. I think on the top of my head, I think it should be the 30th of May.
Okay.
That's when we'll be calling Eskom. And as I indicated, incidentally, the returning CEO, if he's going to be returning, had actually raised his concerns with me on Friday that Eskom was not called, and now that he's back, he would like to come and explain this thing.
I want to talk about this. I believe that you bumped into him at the airport, actually, so you heard the news directly from the man himself that he's going back to work this morning, which a lot of people, of course, are opposed to. Are you allowed to give your opinions on how you feel about Brian Molefe heading back to Eskom?
No, true. I mean, look, the problem that I have, and I see the guest you had before me was actually maybe going into the technicalities and legalities of the matter. When Mr. Molefe resigned from Eskom, he resigned under a cloud because of the report of the previous public protector. And his reason was, I'm leaving in the interest of good governance. I want to go and clear my name. And up to now, he has not cleared his name. And I actually asked him, but why haven't you challenged the public protector's report? And he said, well, there's no finding against me. Now, so when he comes back, what goes to the public mind, and I think the outrage that we have seen, is the fact that here is a man who has a cloud on his head, who left to clear his name, and has just gone to Parliament some 3 months ago. And before he could do anything, he is left Parliament. I mean, the whole thing is turned into a joke, into a circus, which for me does not augur well, not only for him, but for our entire political process. So I would imagine that whatever the issues around the amount of pension he was going to get, in the interest of himself, Eskom, and everybody else, I think he should have, taken whatever was offered to him and, start his new life as an MP.
30 million rand as a pension.
Well, look.
Debatable on that one. And then we had the minister saying that this is the better of the two options, that he rather comes back to Eskom.
No, my point is Mr. Molefe himself should have spared Eskom and the country this consternation. I suppose they're not offering him 500,000. I'm sure it was a couple of millions. He could have taken that, started his new life as an MP. I don't think that life is all about money. If that is what it is all about, then I think he's in the wrong place and is creating problems, not for himself, but for all of us.
Was the report, was it signed on his watch? This Tegeta, was it signed on his watch? The report?
I would imagine that the actual contracting, which happened, I think, in 2014, might have happened before he moved into Eskom. But the PwC reports, I think, were done under his watch, both of them were done under his watch, except that the last one was in November, and I think he left immediately thereafter. So I would imagine that he's familiar with the content. The contracts we're talking about are not minor contracts. And remember, these contracts were signed at a time when we're having problems with load shedding. So I would imagine that any contracts that were supposed to assist in easing off load shedding were very critical and central. And remember, that purchase was made under what is called emergency purchase because of the problems around coal supply and load shedding. So it is not an issue that he will be ignorant of in terms of the earlier findings and the remedial action that was supposed to be
Just finally, to wrap it up, the PwC has recommended that the contract be reviewed. Could Eskom's argument sway this in any way? Could it sway the decision? And also yourself, having spoken to Mr. Brian Molefe, saying that he would also like a right to reply. Could it sway the decision?
No, look, because if you look at that report, it has findings, it has the response, root causes, and the response of management. There is no way where management disputes the findings. Now, what they did, instead of correcting it, they merely kicked the can down the street to 2 years later. I mean, what does it mean? It might as well be that we're having a defective contract that would have continued for about 3 years, and 2 years of which they were aware but decided against correcting the defects, because if they did, it might actually have jeopardized or disadvantaged the supplier and advantaged Eskom. So it could have been a deliberate thing to allow the supplier to continue operating under very favorable conditions to the disadvantage of Eskom.
All right, we leave it there. Themba Godi, thank you very, very much for joining us here on the program, talking to us about Scopa and last week's hearing of Eskom's contract with Tegeta Exploration and Resources. So Themba Godi, of course, is working on this. He's the Scopa chairperson. Thank you again.